Hi everyone, I'm Amanda from Topwind Ranch. We're going to do a video series on Topwind tips and tricks, and today we're going to start with how to get your horse ready to ride. So Dia here is going to be our demonstration horse, and we are going to get her ready to ride today. The first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure they are thoroughly groomed. Which brush you use is going to kind of depend on the season and the horse and how dirty they are. So right now, well, it's kind of coming into winter, they have thicker coats. I like to use a metal curry or a shedding blade to just get off any dirt, break up any old sweat that could be on them, and just give them a thorough grooming that's going to get closer to the skin while they have so much hair. The biggest tip too is always go with the hair. So you don't ever want to go against the grain. It's just kind of uncomfortable for them, and they just won't enjoy it. So we're going to brush down with their hair and flick off any dirt that can be on them, and just paying a lot of attention to where the saddle goes as we're going to ride them. And we would hate to put a saddle pad over dirt and rub that into their coat. That's just going to be uncomfortable, and it can cause some skin issues as well. Dia here has already been ridden for the day, but she is awesome at being our volunteer. But I'm going to make sure I get the cinch area clean and that there's no dirt. You can even run your hand and make sure there's not any things that could be crusty or in the way before we ride her. Always pay attention for safety as well for your horse. You want them to know where you're at. So as I'm working around, I'm going to be sure that I'm moving as I go and letting her know where I am. I wouldn't want to run up behind her and just start brushing her butt without giving her notice. She could spook, possibly kick, and it's just an unsafe thing to do. As you move around your horse, you want to make sure that you're being either verbal or touching them so they know where you are, and you're going to walk around so they know where you are at all times. This is really important for safety so nobody gets hurt, bumped, or kicked. So we'll do the same thing and just work off any dirt patches, giving her a good thorough scratch, working along with the hair. The next brush I'm going to use today is just a stiffer bristle brush. This one's just for kind of flicking off any dirt and doing some of the finishing work while they have a winter coat. The same thing for this brush is just go along with the hair, and you're going to kind of work in like sweeping motions to flick off any dirt or hair or anything that needs to come off of their coat. Work that one all the way over their body to get off any dirt, dander, dust, everything off of them. The last thing that we're going to do today is we're just going to check her feet. We're going to make sure that there's no rocks stuck in her hooves or any other issues that we need to address. So when we're going to pick your horse's feet, the best thing to do is to let them know you're coming. I like to just run my hand down their leg as a warning. Give them a little pinch right here to have them pick up the foot. Then we're going to work our hoof pick down, cleaning out this dirt. There's a little bit of rocks, mud. We're going to bring our pick up along the side of their frog. This is really important too in the winter when you can have muddy, wet months. Checking for thrush or any other issues that could arise, abscesses. We'll get that all cleaned out. All right, this is our tack room, and we like to keep all of our working saddles right here along the wall, and then we keep all our saddle pads on these two locations here. When putting your saddle pad on, most of your pads are going to have some indication of which is the front and which is the back. So for example, this one here has this slit in the front, and this is actually just for their wither. It just provides some relief as that bone can come up and not be pinched underneath the saddle pad. So that's going to be the front near her head and go over her wither. Just like that. All right, the next thing we're going to grab is our saddle. This saddle is a 16-inch seat, and it's a ranch cutter. I like to use this on a lot of our colts. So now what's important is I have saddled Dia lots of times. If you're not sure how your horse saddles, it's important to kind of come up close to them, see how they're handling it before you just throw it over their backs. What I always do next is make sure that my pad is bridged in the very front. So I slide my hand under, give that a little pull. You want to see some air between the saddle and their wither. And then as you can see, I can run my hand down the length of this, and there's nothing that's tight or pinching or indented onto their back or wither. So I know that this saddle fits her comfortably. Before I go to the other side, I just check and make sure my cinch is adjusted for her. This is the center ring of the cinch, and so you can kind of run through, and you want to make sure that that is in between their legs. If it was too far to my side, then I would have to adjust the saddle from this side. So once I know that that is relatively center, I'll go around to the other side so I can cinch her up. I'm going to walk around with my hand, let her know I'm coming. And give her a little push over so you guys can see. Okay, so I'm going to show you two separate ways on how you can cinch up your horse. The first one that we're going to do is we're going to be using the buckle on the cinch. These are AirFlex cinches from Weaver, and I just love them. I think they're super easy to clean. They don't give a lot of horses those kind of sore marks or gulls, and we just think they're really handy. So I'm going to go ahead and start cinching up. We're going to first go through the top buckle in the roller and pull that through. Of course, I got it all twisted up here. So make sure that's nice and flat. All right, then we're going to go back through. And now we're going to go down to the lower buckle. We're going to go back up through one more time. This step is going to depend on how big your horse is, how many times you have to go through. For Dia, she just needs to go through twice. And now at this session, I'm going to pick which hole for a proper snug fit. As you can see here, I can fit my fingers under the cinch, but it's snug to her belly. It's not so tight that I couldn't fit my fingers, but there's not air between my fingers and the cinch. And her belly. So we're gonna put it there, and how you tighten this is you just take the top part, give it a little tug, the pin will tighten up to the leather, and then you're secure. I just take my extra, go through the side, and then up to my keeper. I think this step is important because now even if this comes out of the keeper, we're not having a strap that can pull or undo our cinch at all. If you skip this step and you just come straight up to your keeper, if this came out, now you have something that can undo your cinch. So I think for safety, I always come up through here, through, and then to my keeper. And that's the first way to do it. The second style is going to be a little bit more classic, or maybe some could argue old school. It's going to be the Texas T. To undo this, we just pull this out. To undo this peg, the easiest way is to just give a quick pull upwards, and that will just release that, and then you can easily undo this. So to do the Texas T, it's going to be relatively the same to begin with. We're just going to go ahead and string our cinches. If you do not have this style of cinch, you can just be going through the ring. Some styles will just have one ring and they won't have two rollers there, and that's totally fine. So you'll just go through again. And when you come up this time, instead of worrying about the peg, you're going to come up through the side. Then you're going to take this. Then you're going to come up through the other side. And the last step to secure this one is you go back down through the center. Obviously we didn't get that tight, but that's okay. There. And so this is considered the Texas T. Now you can just take your extra through your keeper, however you want to do it. You can also go the other way if you want to avoid that extra bulk. The only reason I don't like this one is as you're riding, when you have your knee and your leg right there, this extra piece can just add some bulk underneath your leg. And considering it's not the same on the other side, as you're riding, you might feel that bulk in your inner leg. And sometimes it can just interfere when you're doing more fine tuning or long rides or things like that. Now, if you have a nylon one, it will be less bulky just because the leather is thicker. But either way, it's totally up to you. Each preference will get the saddle secure and make sure that you're safe. It's just kind of depending on what style that you like. Okay, after you make sure that your front cinch is secure, the second step is to secure the back cinch. Now the back cinch is not going to be as tight as the front cinch, but you do want it touching their belly. Dia here is a smaller horse, and so even on my tightest setting, it's not all the way up to her belly. I would honestly like this probably one higher. What you're going to want when you're looking for your back cinch is that it's touching their stomach. You don't want it, you know, as tight as the front cinch, but you would like it snug and flush with their stomach. Otherwise, it's not really doing its job. So if Dia here was going long term in the saddle, you'd probably want to punch another hole to bring that up. Now, it's really important that when you are saddling your horse, you always do the front cinch first and then the back cinch. The reason for this being is if Dia moved over or something spooked her and the saddle were to fall off, the front cinch is what's holding it on. If you did not have the front cinch secured and you connected the back cinch, the saddle could fly underneath her belly, and now you're just creating an entire wreck. So the same thing when we take the saddle off. What we're going to do first is undo the back cinch, so knowing that that is not secure any longer, and then we'll take off the front cinch. All right, now that we know we have our saddle on, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to put a bit in. This is a snaffle bit. It's a pretty standard bit for young horses, green horses. I like to use a D-ring snaffle with my colts, and it looks just like that. I'll put a link for the bit and the cinch in the description of the video if you guys need to look up what we use or want any ideas for your horse. So the first thing we'll do is I'll put the reins around her neck. That way, when I take off her halter, I have something to keep her with me and to move her head towards me as I'm putting the bit on. So we'll take off our halter, and then I can use this to make sure she stays with me. The next thing I want to do is I'm just going to ask her to put her head over to me. I'm going to put the bit near her mouth, take my other hand, and then I'm going to use my hand to guide it into her mouth. Use your thumb, if you have to, in the corner to guide it. And as she takes that bit, we're going to come up, put the first ear in the second ear. Now this bit was not in Dia's mouth earlier, so I can also show you how we adjust it for her head. So as you can see right here, it's a little bit too big. It's kind of hanging down on her face and she's trying to pick it up. So I'm going to take the strap here and adjust that tighter. And then before I finish, I'm going to check and see if it's the right. There. You see how she kind of stopped chomping it? It's not hanging down in her face too much. Okay, so I'm just going to tighten it up so that the bit sits comfortably in her mouth. And what I'm looking for is I would like a snug fit into their lip. I don't actually prefer it pulled tight with a bunch of wrinkles. I want my horse to be able to hold the bit on their own. I just want it sitting taut with their lip and not hanging down. So after I know that that's secure, you can kind of tell she plays with it as she feels it, and then it gets comfortable and where she can hold it. After that's secure, we can do that. The last step is going to be securing our throat latch, and that's just a clip that goes in their throat. After that's secure, your horse is bridled and they're ready to go ride. All right, now that your horse is all tacked up and bridled, you can bring them out to the arena wherever you're going to ride them. One other important tip is that if you lunge your horse or if you're going to walk them out or do any type of warm-up, make sure that you are checking your cinch before you go ahead and mount them. Thanks for watching, you guys. If you want any videos specifically, just let us know in the comments and we're happy to continue the series.